Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. House Republicans pass a big, beautiful budget blueprint by an inch, set to make good on President Trump's tax, border, and spending cut agenda. Democratic Congressman Khanna joins us.
It's not being done in a way that is rational. It's just cut.
Cava, the fast casual Mediterranean eatery, stumbles on earnings and inflation concerns, but CEO Brett Schulman says the chain is still on a growth path.
We're focused on the next decade, not the next quarter.
Plus, Trump-branded visas for foreigners and Ukraine giving the U.S. access to rare earth minerals.
You got to live in a real world where Russia's not going away and Ukraine is not going to win this war.
All that today on the podcast and much more.
You got some egg.
Excellent.
On your face. No.
It's Wednesday, February 26th.
And Squawk begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC, live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square.
You can't do it. No, Squawk Box.
Oh, I can't do that. No, I can.
I'm Becky. Your time will come.
Not even going to try.
Your time will come.
Try it. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Meantime, reports now saying that the U.S. and Ukraine have reached a deal over access to Ukraine's deposits of rare earth minerals, I should say. The Financial Times saying that the draft deal would see the two countries jointly developing Ukraine's mineral resources, including oil and gas, and that the U.S. in some ways would be dropping demands for a right to $500 billion in potential revenue from the deal. Meanwhile, sources telling NBC News that Russia has proposed a potential agreement under which the U.S. would gain ownership of rare earth minerals in parts of Ukraine that are currently controlled by the Russian military. So a twist of sorts in all of this. The $500 million demand, $1 billion demand goes away.
Right.
A fund of some sort is established. There's some kind of joint ownership over the fund. Rare earth minerals that have already been sort of excavated or tapped are separated, so that's not part of the deal.
Companies that are doing that aren't part of the deal.
But there's also no, there's a peacekeeping force of some sort. But
it would have to be.
Right, but not necessarily in
Europe.
In words. Sort of larger plan.
No explicit security. But there is implicit by the idea that we would have skin in the game, I guess.
Yeah. It's so bizarre that it actually makes sense, again, somehow. But it is a resource-rich country. So we're how much bigger than Ukraine? We're so much bigger than Ukraine. We got 1% of the rare earth minerals in this country. They got 5% of the global. So it's 5 times as much on a much smaller country. And for people that say we're abandoning Ukraine or appeasing Russia and Putin, it sort of implies that we have a financial interest there that we would protect, which would then translate almost to security.
But the question
Ukraine.
is
you gotta like this. I don't want you to say anything. I don't want you to say but. I don't want you to say but. But
There's
go ahead.
There's 2 interesting questions to me about all of this. One is, there was I don't know if you want to call it a financial interest, but we have a general interest in democracy. We think that that's actually good for the world, therefore good for us.
That's a totally I don't know.
You may not believe that.
No, I
but
think
by the way, that's what most Republicans have talked about.
Yeah, but we're not
forever.
It's true, but then again, you got to live in a real world where Russia's not going away and where Ukraine is not going to win this war.
Okay, but there's a secondary issue, which is, now that we have this deal, and even I think the proposal of the $500 billion deal, by default, next time there is some kind of problem in the world, and an ally, whether like a Ukraine, has to think about whether they want to ask us for help or not, right?
What is your definition of democracy? Ukraine wins this war, and we
I don't know.
Vanquish Putin.
I don't know what the answer is.
That was never going to be possible. And what is your I guess concern this leads to if we don't stop him. Do you think this is Neville Chamberlain in World War II and the dominoes fall and Poland's next and Europe is at risk?
I think that's absolutely a possibility. I know you don't think so.
Then you're getting into opinion and philosophical discussions, and I don't know whether it is or not. You may be right or you may be wrong.
And we'll never know. Well, hopefully we'll never know.
It just might be a losing streak.
It just might be a lunatic you're looking for.
And I hear what you're saying, but in a practical, pragmatic way, I think you'd have to say, wow, if the war were to end, we don't want him coming back in 2 years and saying, I want another half.
No, but it would
Ukraine.
be exactly. It would be nice to see the U.S. have their aligned positions with Ukraine to make sure that the financial interest helps on that, to make sure that we're on the same side, that there is.
Right. And what didn't happen with Iraq, where we got no oil revenue, we didn't get. All we got is heartache, really, and misery, and terrible casualties and everything else. And I'm not saying that financial takes care of any of that, or is a salve.
All I'm saying is that the next time that there's some kind of aggression by another country, maybe even on a NATO member or something like that, there's going to be a change in the relationship, which is that those countries
I think we're already there.
Are going to say to themselves, do I even want to call on the U.S. to help me? Because guess what? They are going to call me back afterwards and say that they want half my country or they want 500 billion.
I'm just saying
the whole thing is
already
different.
there. That nation building didn't work. We learned our lesson meddling in the middle of Afghanistan, and they're different. What happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, but we're already less. I think our adventurism around the world to try to put in governments that we like. That's already. Not something we're going to do anymore. But I think if push came to shove, and there was just, remember what happened in Kuwait. We're going to do something if that happens. But we're not a bunch of neocons anymore. Neocons are a thing. They're dinosaurs. In this part, in the current Republican Party.
Were you not one of them then?
Yes, probably. I believe Colin Powell. I thought that Saddam Hussein was a walking, breathing weapon of mass destruction with what he did to the Kurds and everything else. But now we know you break it and you own it. And that's what happened. And we don't need, I don't know.
President Trump floating the possibility of a $5 million gold card as a pathway to American citizenship. The president telling reporters he wants to replace the EB-5 immigrant investor visa program, which allows people from overseas to become U.S. permanent residents if they invest significantly to create or preserve American jobs.
It's a gold card. It's somewhat like a green card, but at a higher level of sophistication. It's a road to citizenship for people. And essentially people of wealth or people of great talent, where people of wealth pay for those people of talent to get in, meaning companies will pay for people to get in and to have long-term status in the country.
So I thought this was fascinating in its own way. I don't know how.
We already do it, sort of.
We sort of do it. I thought, but usually it's involving investment in the country, not just a straight check. A couple of things that I just wonder about. One is he talked about selling 1 million of these cards to create $5 trillion worth of value, which then he could use to pay down the deficit. Mm-hmm. I went online just to see how many people in the world have $5 million of discretionary income on the planet, and depending on which search engine you use or AI system you use, you get to about 1.5, 1.6 million people.
So they'd have to all come?
Fully. So I don't know if that number is right or wrong, but I couldn't find a better number, and I was looking. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I was reflecting on was he was asked, well, would like a Russian oligarch be on that list? Right. And he was like, yes, I think they would. And so it's very interesting. The kind of people who are going to want to spend the money are a different kind of person. Yes, you're trying to jump the line. I get the jump the line. So there are going to be some, hopefully, great people who want to jump the line. But we also have a system where you can get a visa for free if you actually are the right person. right?
Yeah,
and so here we're basically selling it to the wrong people. Is that what we're doing? I don't know
if they're necessarily
the
the wrong people, but if they can get one anyway, I'd like to get the $5 million. I think that'd be good. This is never going to be able to be sold PR-wise because it's so anti-egalitarian,
Yes.
and people are.
I'm not even worried. I'm not even talking about
honestly,
that.
I mean, instead
that's
of
like not even on
and
my list.
We need workers of all kind, and I understand all humans are. I understand where you come from on a lot of this stuff, Andrew. We're all. Can't we all just get along? And we're all humans, and we're all equal, and all that stuff. But to bring in entrepreneurs,
I do, but I'm not saying that.
Okay, but to bring in entrepreneurs and investors, and I mean, I think if they want to come to the United States, if they got that much to be able to contribute, and then hopefully contribute even more once they're here, then I think it's a good thing. And I can.
I was thinking of somebody like the Beatles. Remember when they came over?
I know you. I'm very woke most of the time.
Right.
But I can, just briefly suspend my incredibly woke instincts and say this would be good. I can get beyond the egalitarian.
I don't even like it when people pay at Disney to jump.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. You're gonna, but we already have a.
But I'm not even on to the egalitarian thing. I'm saying we give the visas away for
you
free.
Immediately think that it's going to be a bunch of drug dealers and arms dealers and Russian oligarchs and nasty people that are involved in organized crime. Why couldn't it be really successful Chinese entrepreneurs?
What if it were H-1B visa types that, these are like super talented people?
Well, right. No, you want the super talented people who need to
then
jump
they
the line.
can raise the money from all their backers and come over.
Say come over instead of the argument against the H-1B visa
be nice to get $5 trillion. Right.
Yeah, the argument against the H-1B visas is that you're bringing over people who are just taking good American jobs at lower paying wages. If you got a $5 million entry fee, you're not bringing over someone who you're going to pay lower wages to. You're bringing over someone who's truly gifted.
Look, there's two things going on. We've all talked about how we would like to staple, I think, if you go to Wharton or you go to Harvard, we'd like to staple onto your diploma a green card. We've talked about that forever.
Yeah. Right. If we're going to educate you here, we'd like to keep you here.
So now we're saying that that's not really in the cards. It sounds like we're saying if you're really great coming out of Wharton, he actually talked about kids coming out of Wharton. He now wants to charge you $5 million for the privilege. Anyway, it's a very interesting thing. I don't know.
I guess we don't know enough of the details. Does it replace the visa programs that are already in place?
No, it's a supplement to that. It's like an easy pass.
Yeah.
It's like a fast pass. And so it may work, but it also, I think, is going to, the kind of people who have $5 million, it's a limited group of people. And the idea that companies are going to pay, they may, but I don't believe he's saying,
well,
it's not like Apple.
So if you got, 50 or 100,000, it's still a big number.
Yeah.
So, and these are the people that.
I don't think you're going to relax the rules on drug dealers and stuff, right?
And
that would be
that's the question, right?
I mean, I am sure you've been through so many velvet ropes, and then once you even get in the place, there's an even better velvet rope that you're in all the time.
You've never even seen the room. You don't even know the rooms
I don't even know that
exist,
exists the ones.
You don't even know the rooms.
Where you getting
oh my God.
Where you're getting the crystal.
If you knew what was going on in those rooms.
The multiple
room
bottles
behind
of
the room behind the room.
No, I've never been there. I don't want to go there.
It's like a Russian doll.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to go there when I have to be in bed by 8:30.
You got some egg.
Excellent.
On your face. No. What do you got?
I don't have egg on my face, but I do have our segment, which you know what it's called, the Executive Edge, right?
Hey, executive.
The Executive Edge. Some good news for McDonald's fans. An executive at the restaurant chain vowing to reject an extra charge on menu items with eggs, even as prices have skyrocketed over bird flu fears. We've offed a lot of chickens in the last couple of years, couple 100,000, right? We have. Mm-hmm. On Monday, Denny's became the latest chain to institute an egg surcharge. Waffle House had previously tacked on an extra fee, but
extra fee.
God. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity.
An excellent opportunity.
Excellent opportunities. It's coming up.
Hey, can I just very quickly back to this gold visa program?
Yep.
Robert Frank, who knows about everything, taxes, visas, you name it, he says that it replaces the EB-5 program that's been riddled with fraud and abuse and is mainly a subsidy for real estate developers. Yep. So this is like an improvement potentially for what you see out of that. We're not the only country that does this. The EB-5 program already does this, but the gold visa programs include countries like Greece and Hungary and others, where if you put an investment
stopped the programs.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole number of them, all the golden passports that you used to be able to buy in Europe, they ended those programs, in part because of some of these issues.
I just think it's a big leap to think that to immediately go to like the villains in MI5 with Tom Cruise as the first person that's going to, the arms dealer oligarch from Russia is the first person that's going to come. Why not people that look at the United States as a shining city on the hill, have money? I want to go there and participate in the American dream.
Because a lot of those people can get visas.
Why not? Okay, but why not them? Why jump to the arms dealer oligarch in Russia?
Because one person can get a visa for free, the other person can't get the visa, so maybe
but why would it immediately, if he had money, why would it have to be something that would be a negative for us?
It's not, because the arms dealer has money.
No, I know, right? I know, but but in their. Definitely just the normal dreamer is much more virtuous than this horrible $5 million person.
The drug dealer? You're saying?
No, I just think it's a weird leap.
You're saying the drug dealer is better than the dreamer?
No, I'm saying that you can't assume. I'm saying you can't assume that the dreamer is better than someone who can afford to come here with $5 million. Well,
it depends how they got their $5 million.
Yeah, exactly. So why assume that they got it through drug dealing or something like that?
Because the guy who got it the right way likely could get the visa for free. Okay. Coming up, we're
I almost said
inside.
it.
I know you almost did. The latest results.
Tease will be next.
Coming up next on Squawk Pod, the House passing a multi-trillion-dollar budget plan with zero Democratic Party support and potential cuts coming to entitlements. California Representative Khanna joins us with his thoughts on what's in the bill.
At this point, where working class Americans are struggling, where 90% of the stock market is owned by 10% of Americans, I just don't think we need more tax breaks for the very wealthy.
Welcome back. This is Squawk Pod.
You're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Joe Kernan and Becky Quick.
We wanted you to do...
Our egg names?
Yeah. Beggy Quick.
I'm Becky Quick.
Yoke Kernan.
Along with Yoke Kernan.
Andrew Ross Cluckin.
So what came from the floor today that led to this outcome? Davidson said he got promises of cuts.
We'll increase the deficit.
Believe that you'll get cuts on March 14th?
I highly doubt that. I mean, look, here's the deal. We are cutting taxes and we're not going to cut spending to match it, so the deficit's going to go up. That's what this bill does. Over present law. We had a tax holiday for 5 years. The consequences of renewing that tax holiday are going to be to accelerate the increase in debt for our country. It's that simple.
Did you speak with President Trump?
I don't talk about that.
This vote, the ayes are 217, the nays are 215. Majority voting in the affirmative, the concurrent resolution is adopted.
Thank you all for staying on a long night. We got it done. We had the requisite number of votes to move this process along, and now passing the budget resolution in the House, it will go to the Senate.
What were the promises that you made? What were the promises you made?
House narrowly adopting President Trump's multi-trillion-dollar budget blueprint. Emily Wilkins joins us right now with more. This was a close call last night, but they did get the vote, Emily.
Good morning, Becky. Yeah, they did. It was a real nail biter, but House Republicans, they did get the votes. They took that major step forward in moving Trump's agenda last night. And remember, this is, of course, the vote on spending levels and cuts. And of course, the next step is policy. Now, Trump was ultimately responsible for changing the minds of several of the holdouts. That includes Congressman Tim Burchett. He told me yesterday morning that he didn't think the cuts went far enough and wasn't sure if he'd be able to support the bill. But listen what he told reporters last night right after the vote.
They're legitimate cuts, and it's the right direction to go. It's not everything I wanted, but in this game, you're either at the table or on the menu, and it's time to get at the table.
The House and Senate are now going to have to hash out the differences between their two proposals, the one the House passed last night, the one the Senate passed last week. One of the biggest areas of dispute is how to address the tax package. The House bill allocates $4.5 trillion. That is enough to extend that 2017 tax package for a couple of years, but it is not enough to make it permanent. And that's just not good enough for the Senate's top tax writer, Mike Crapo, as well as Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Both of them want to see things like tax credits for research and development and tax credits for small businesses extended indefinitely. Complicating matters, of course, is how to tally the spending on that. The Senate and House have competing plans for how to measure the cost, and that could ultimately wind up pitting Trump's agenda against deficit hawks. Becky?
So how long does this process take? What are we kind of considering at this point? If it's got to go through the Senate, changes there, then be voted on again by the House, what's the time frame we're thinking?
That's a great question, Becky. I mean, you talk to Republicans up there and they say they want this done as soon as possible. But of course, they are going to have to get to agreement. They can't move on to that next step of taking this blueprint and inserting all the policy until the House and the Senate actually agree. And I think one of the interesting things to watch here is going to be President Trump. It seems like he is good taking a hands-off approach until he sees a plan forming. And at that point, he is willing to kind of get on the phone, talk to people, massage things through, and get to a yes. So definitely we'll be keeping an eye on what happens with the tax package, as well as, of course, other portions of the bill dealing with energy, border security, and defense funding.
Yeah, and if it takes the president actually making calls to get this over the finish line, then I guess the question of time really does play into it, too. He's probably incredibly strong right now. You always see presidents weaken as they get closer to the next election cycle for the House, whatever that may be. So I guess the time may be of the essence in terms of how much strength they have to push this over.
Especially with, the government funding due in just a couple weeks, with that fiscal cliff that's looming there in a few months. I mean, Becky, certainly they are on the clock to get this done.
Okay. Emily, thank you. Emily Wilkins. Joining us right now to talk about the budget, DOGE, and much more is Congressman Ro Khanna, whose district is in the heart of Silicon Valley. Ro, thank you very much for being here. Why don't we talk, first of all, about what happened last night, this procedural vote in the House for budget approval. It was a close one, but the Republicans were able to push it over the finish line. What comes next?
Well, it was a close vote. They did a late-night maneuver. All the Democrats opposed it. And the reason we opposed it is they have $2 trillion of Medicaid cuts by their own admission, and they want to have tax breaks for very, very wealthy folks. Democrats just don't believe in that. Now we'll see what they get through in the Senate and if they actually go through with this.
Yeah, I guess there were Republicans who weren't in favor. The president was able to call and kind of wrangle most of those votes, everyone save one vote. Many of them wanted to see additional cuts, that this didn't go far enough for them. So I guess I wonder what the Democrats' next move is. If this goes to the Senate, what happens next, and what will the Democrats do to kind of put their opposition forward?
Well, the Democrats will keep talking about the facts, that what this is going to mean is $2 trillion of cuts in Medicaid. What does that mean practically? It means many states will no longer be able to offer Medicaid insurance to a number of individuals. It will mean the closure of hospitals. By the way, Donald Trump won voters under 100,000. So a lot of the people who are going to be most impacted by these Medicaid cuts are his voters. And they also have cuts to food stamps, all to fund tax breaks for very, very wealthy individuals. Look, we don't have the votes to stop this. They can, through reconciliation, get this through the Senate and the House. And then it's for the American people to see whether they really want these drastic cuts.
Ro, that's a populist message that we keep hearing when people come on that I don't think is entirely accurate. And I think it's kind of disingenuous because the 2017 tax and job cuts, marginal rates went to 37 from 39.6. That affects a lot of people. The standard deduction changed. The child tax credit would then drop from $2,000 to $1,000. And it says right here, approximately 91% of taxpayers would face higher taxes, with the majority middle income families being particularly affected, most affected. Anyone making $80,000, a family of four, would see a $1,700 increase in taxes. 91% of Americans would get a tax hike. And then you're also talking about corporate rates going back up. So just to just continuously say that it's billionaires that are benefiting is totally false. It's totally disingenuous. And you're also conflating corporations with the wealthy or with billionaires because of the corporate tax cut. Why not be honest? And Democrats I think they could earn some goodwill with people if they were actually honest about what this means. I don't know about the Medicaid stuff. You know, I don't know whether Republicans have settled on that or not. But just the tax cuts themselves benefited everyone across the board. If some people pay more taxes and their marginal rate goes down and they're wealthy, it's true that the actual benefit is a bigger number, but everyone benefited and 91% of people will get a tax hike.
Joe, first of all, I didn't say it just is going to benefit billionaires, but it disproportionately last time benefited those in the top 1%, as you acknowledged.
That's who pays the taxes, Ro. But that's who pays. Well, of course, they're going to save more if you lower the marginal rate because they're paying so much more.
Sure, and it disproportionately benefited the top 10%. Now, we can, in my view, if you want to preserve the tax breaks for the middle class and the working class and work with the Democrats on doing that, there would be an openness to it. But at this point, where working class Americans are struggling, where 90% of the stock market is owned by 10% of Americans, I just don't think we need more tax breaks for the very wealthy, and especially if it's going to come at the expense of funding for Medicaid and for funding of food stamps. And this is the philosophical debate. I mean, do you cut Medicaid insurance, have rural hospitals shut down, have health centers, behavioral health services shut down to further these tax cuts for disproportionately benefiting the top 10%?
Do you raise corporate taxes or let them go back to where they were on small businesses, on the job creators of the entire country who pay the taxes for all the things that you want to do, including Medicare? That all comes from the private sector. Are you sure it makes sense to let that go back into the, where would that, what's it go to, 30% or so? Where would corporate tax rates go if you just let them expire?
Well, first of all, there's one place where we may agree, which is why do we have a corporate tax rate in Mexico and in Canada, and if you go overseas, that is 10%. Whereas if you're a company investing in the United States, you pay 21%. How about we raise the tax rate on the offshore earnings for all these companies that are offshoring our jobs and raise that to 21 or 28%? That would be one place we would get American investment. Now, I don't think the corporate rate has to go all the way up to 35, but we could figure out a compromise position. It doesn't have to stay where it is today, but I would certainly level it between the United States and going overseas.
Congressman, let me ask you about DOGE, because back in December, you had kind of talked about working with Elon Musk and with DOGE. You've changed your tune pretty substantially. I think at this point you think that they are breaking the law. What happened to make you change your mind on this?
Well, he didn't come to Congress, and he's approaching the firing of some of these workers without any a rational plan. Look, we had 15 people, many of them Trump voters, talk about how they were fired. People who were veterans who served this country in Iraq and Afghanistan. They called it the Valentine's Day Massacre. They all got an email on Valentine's Day. Many of them had been good performers. They had been top performers, and they just told it that their jobs were eliminated. Some were told they were poor performers when they were actually good performers. So there's been no rational plan, and people's lives are being hurt. And many of the cuts, they're not even coming to Congress to discuss them.
So that's your problem with it, mostly that you think that cuts could and should be there, but you think Congress should be the ones deciding that?
No, my main thing is it's not being done in a way that is rational. It's just cut, not looking at people's performance, not looking at what their functions are, not having any conversation with them. And secondly, it's not going after the big ticket items, which are the subsidies to big fossil fuel companies, which is the breaks that we're giving pharma in terms of the buying of medicines. It's the Pentagon, the big five prime contractors. So they're not tackling that. They haven't come to Congress, and they're doing it in a way that is haphazard. That is the way private equity may do it, or the way Elon may have done it with Twitter. But that's not what you can do with the federal government. Have a one-year plan, discuss it with people, have stakeholders do it. Bill Clinton actually did that in his Reinventing Government, where the workforce fell by 351,000 people. But Congress was consulted, and there was a rational plan for it.
Hey, Congressman, wanted to also get your thoughts on the idea of a gold card for immigrants who want to immigrate to the United States and are wealthy enough or prepared to spend $5 million to do it.
Well, certainly a glimpse at President Trump's assessment of value. You know, he looks at things from investment. I guess I just say to him this. I don't think Sergey Brin, who founded Google, or Satya Nadella, or Sundar Pichai had $5 million in their bank accounts when they came. In fact, I know they didn't. And yet they built trillion-dollar companies. Even if your goal is the maximization of American industry productivity wealth, it doesn't seem to me that just evaluating people based on how much wealth they're going to bring in initially is the right metric, as opposed to their ambition, their industry, their creativity, their productivity.
So does that mean you're against this? And do you believe that it requires Congress to pass any kind of law? Or do you think this is all these executive orders, you think those are fine?
Well, I do think it requires Congress. On the face of it, I haven't seen any proposal, but I'm against it. I also don't understand what this Green Card Plus means. I mean, we have a system where if you invest $500,000, you can get a green card. You're in line for a green card. So what does Green Card Plus mean? Does it mean they go to the front of the line if they have more money versus someone who's been here and working hard and been here for years? I certainly wouldn't be for that. I don't think you should be able to pay money just to get to the front of the line. So we don't have any of the details. It seems like marketing, but and it requires Congress, but that's not the type of comprehensive immigration that we need.
Congressman Khanna, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on Squawk Pod, looking for a place to eat lunch?
There are a lot of choices I had. I chose Cava.
Mediterranean chain Cava missed earnings expectations, but they're still optimistic for the future of hummus and grain bowls. CEO Brett Schulman joins us right after this.
We feel like we are pretty well positioned to absorb any impact from the tariffs. We source most of our products domestically, and our basket's pretty diverse.
You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC.
Up and Andrew, Q.
Cava shares moving higher this morning. Earnings of 5 cents per share. Missed estimates by a penny, but revenue and same-store sales beating expectations for the full year. The company expecting comp sales growth of 6 to 8%. More analysts were closer to the top end of that range. Joining us right now is Brett Schulman. He's the co-founder and CEO of Cava. You got a lot of high expectations now on you. Like every quarter, you got to hit the number, right? That's the hardest part.
Well, we're focused on the long term, Andrew. We're focused on the next decade, not the next quarter. And we were excited that we were able to actually meet or exceed our guidance for the full year in 2024, whether that was adjusted EBITDA, whether that was revenue, or whether it was restaurant level margin, and certainly beat on the same restaurant sales side with 15.6% traffic in the quarter and 8.7% traffic for the year, which was a testament to the exceptional work of our team.
How quickly are you opening new stores at this point?
Well, last year was about an 18.8% compound annual growth rate. This year, given the strength of our pipeline, we've committed to at least 17% growth. So that translates to the 62 to 66 restaurant count guidance of new restaurant openings this year.
And when you think about same-store sales, what can you do at this point? I mean, by the way, there's now lines in these places. So I wonder, I go to your restaurants and I think to myself, there's only so much capacity.
Well, we've certainly got capacity in some restaurants, but the best thing we can do is open restaurants, adjacent to those restaurants in markets 3 to 5 miles away or in the city a few blocks away. Take some of the pressure off.
Like a Starbucks situation where all of a sudden every corner is going to have a...
It speaks to the massive white space opportunity and the growing interest in Mediterranean cuisine. Mediterranean diet ranked number 1 again for 8 years running. So we see this increasing interest in our cuisine, this unique cuisine where taste and health unites.
What about the cost of food?
Yeah, so we've talked about low single-digit COGS inflation this year, so fairly benign. We feel good about how that's positioned, and so we only took a 1.7% menu price adjustment in January, and we don't plan to take any further price for the remainder of the year. And when you look back historically in recent years, from the end of 19 to now the end of 24, now that we've finished the year, we've taken price in aggregate 15%. CPI's up about 23%. And fast food, traditional QSR, has been up in the mid-30s. So we've raised prices less than half of that.
How much of your food is either coming from Mexico or Canada?
Yeah, good question. Not a lot. We feel like we are pretty well positioned to absorb any impact from the tariffs. We source most of our products domestically, and our basket's pretty diverse. So we've got 25% produce, 25% proteins, 25% grocery, which is like dry goods, oils, and spices, and then 25% others. So not exposed
to one single ingredient. Are you shifting any ingredients in terms of?
Well, we're always trying to build redundancy in the supply chain and have multiple suppliers, whether domestic or international, to make sure.
So what's at risk? And we always talk about the avocado.
Yeah,
what's at risk?
Avocados are in our basket, but there's avocados in Peru, not just Mexico. So we do have alternative avenues of supply.
What time does it open? I mean, would it be impossible to get it here next time you come on?
To get Cava? Yeah. We'd love to bring it here for you. Cava for breakfast.
How would you do it, though? What time do you open?
We open at 10:30.
But seriously, is it simply a lunch, or would you ever expand? Like some restaurants have gone into the business of doing breakfast just to make sure that they're getting used to the store the whole way through. Is that an option for you guys?
Yeah, we're not focused on breakfast right now, but we do have a really balanced day part mix. We're about 46% at dinner, 54% at lunch. So we're a very intuitive choice at dinner, not just lunch, which gives us that strength across the country, in the suburbs and the cities, and then certainly gives us that strong comp growth from 2 day parts.
The back to work movement, will that help you? Is it, I mean, if people are back to the office, I guess.
Yeah, we're kind of agnostic on that because of our diverse footprint. You think we succeed in the city, we love to serve our office workers lunch, but we have a great suburban presence where we'll get families or couples or high school or college students for dinner as well as lunch. So we're pretty well diversified when you look at our portfolio across the country, which gets us excited for this white space opportunity because we have a lot of ways to win, whether that's geographically, whether it's the type of trade area, urban, suburban, or even small town and ex-urban.
How do you feel about airports?
Yeah, so we're at Reagan National. We've been there actually for about 10 years. We're at Dulles. We recently opened at LAX. We'll have a few other airports
A lot
coming.
of stores love to get it, even if you're losing money. I don't know if you're making money or losing money in the airport, but a lot of people like the airport because it's almost like a marketing opportunity.
It's a great marketing opportunity, and our customers really love it because it's a health oasis in a food desert typically. So it's a great brand awareness driver for us.
But is there margin there or no?
Well, so we own all of our restaurants are corporate owned, no franchise restaurants, but our airport restaurants are licensed restaurants. So we get the license fees from those restaurants.
Same with Union Station down in D.C. That's where I had. Is it still there?
Which?
Union Station in D.C.
That's corporate owned. We own Union. Yeah, we run that restaurant. Still,
there are a lot of choices I had. I chose Cava.
Well, that's the idea. Why are you coming by the 3 places?
I don't know. And I had that sandwich, and I wish you brought one in this morning.
It's that craveable
chicken,
food.
That
harissa honey chicken.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I think it was.
It's addictive.
Brett, thank you this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That is Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. Get the best of our show in this easy-to-listen-to podcast. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you listen. And if you like what you hear, let us know. You can rate or review Squawk Pod right on Apple Podcasts, right on your phone. That does help other listeners discover us. Thank you. That's it. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.